They said it couldn't be done. They said it was impossible. But what this Filipino engineer did next left the entire Dubai construction world speechless. Miguel was just like any other engineer, smart, determined, and full of ideas. But he had something more, a dream. A dream to build structures that would not just touch the sky, but change the way skyscrapers were built forever. It all started in Dubai, a city where ambition never sleeps and buildings reach higher than the clouds. Miguel had spent years learning, studying, and experimenting. Every blueprint he made, every calculation he checked, every model he built, it was all leading to one thing. One day, he submitted his latest design to a top construction firm in Dubai. His blueprint was different, revolutionary. It could make buildings stronger, lighter, and safer, using materials in a way no one had tried before. But the lead engineer, a man known for his experience and strict methods, laughed as he looked at Miguel's papers. "This won't work," he said, shaking his head. "We've been building skyscrapers for decades. Your plan, it's just too risky." Miguel tried to explain. "Sir, the calculations are correct. If we follow the design, it will hold. Stronger than current buildings, even in extreme weather." The lead engineer leaned back, a smirk on his face. "You're young, you're ambitious, but experience matters. You don't have it yet, I'm sorry." For Miguel, it felt like the world had slammed the door in his face. He left the office quietly, holding the blueprint tight in his hands. Outside, the Dubai sun burned bright, reflecting off the towering glass buildings around him. He could have walked away. Most people would, but not Miguel. He went back to his tiny apartment. Papers were scattered everywhere, coffee cups on the desk. He stared at his blueprint. He could see the numbers, the angles, the models in his mind, and he smiled. "Let them laugh," he said to himself. "I'll show them." Days turned into nights. Nights turned into weeks. Miguel worked tirelessly, refining every calculation, testing simulations, checking every angle. He barely slept, barely ate. The city outside went about its business, unaware that one small office held the future of engineering. Finally, he felt ready. Miguel requested another meeting. This time, he wasn't just going to hand over papers. He brought models, data, simulations, and a presentation that would leave no room for doubt. The day of the meeting arrived. The same lead engineer looked at Miguel as he entered. "Back again?" he said with a raised eyebrow. "I hope you're not wasting more of our time." Miguel set up his models carefully. "Sir, I know you think it won't work, but please just hear me out." The lead engineer shrugged and gestured for him to start. Miguel began explaining, slowly at first, then with more confidence. "If we use this method, the building can withstand winds over 200 kilometers per hour, earthquakes stronger than most in the region, and we will save both materials and money. It's efficient and safe." Some engineers in the room exchanged glances. They were curious. Others were skeptical. The lead engineer interrupted. "How can you be sure? Calculations are one thing, real life is another." Miguel smiled faintly. "That's why I built a prototype." He revealed a small, detailed model. Tiny, but every beam, every joint, every support was exactly as it would be in a real skyscraper. The room went silent. Miguel continued, showing simulations of extreme weather, stress tests, and even earthquake models. "The numbers don't lie. The design works." A junior engineer whispered to another, This could actually work." But the lead engineer wasn't convinced yet. "Fine, one test, one small prototype. Nothing big," Miguel nodded. "Thank you, sir. You won't regret it." Weeks later, the prototype was tested. Everyone watched as it was subjected to forces stronger than most buildings ever face. Winds, shakes, pressures, and then it held. Not only held, but it exceeded expectations. The room erupted in whispers and murmurs. The impossible had become possible. The lead engineer walked over to Miguel, eyes wide. I can't believe it. You were right. All of this, you actually made it work." Miguel simply nodded. "It's not about being right, sir. It's about trying something new." Word spread like wildfire. Dubai's construction world was buzzing. Companies were lining up to see Miguel's design, to implement it in new skyscrapers. The same people who had laughed at him now wanted his advice, his blueprints, his expertise. And Miguel, he stayed humble. He shared his methods openly, trained other engineers, and ensured his design would change the industry forever. But the story doesn't end there, because soon Miguel faced a new challenge. A massive project was announced, a skyscraper taller than anything Dubai had ever seen. The lead engineer, now a supporter, wanted Miguel on the team. The lead engineer, now a supporter, wanted Miguel on the team. But so did every other construction company in the city. Miguel had to make a choice. Which team would he join? Which company would allow his design to shine without cutting corners? And just when he thought things were settling, an unexpected obstacle appeared. A rival engineer tried to sabotage his design, claiming Miguel's calculations were wrong. Could Miguel prove them wrong again? Could he defend his blueprint under pressure from some of the most powerful construction firms in the world? The entire Dubai construction community was watching. The reputation of Miguel, the Filipino engineer, was on the line. What happened next changed the city forever. The city was alive with excitement. Dubai was a place where dreams reached the sky, but Miguel's blueprint had opened a door no one expected. His small prototype had proven something. Innovation could triumph over tradition. Soon after, a massive project was announced. A skyscraper taller than any in Dubai. The government wanted it to be a symbol of modern engineering, safety, and sustainability. They wanted Miguel on the team, but the moment he received the offer, he hesitated. He sat in his small apartment, looking at the Dubai skyline through the window. The lights reflected on his blueprint, almost like they were calling to him. "I've worked for this moment," he whispered. "But I need to be careful. This is bigger than me." Miguel knew the stakes. This project would put his design to the ultimate test. If it succeeded, it would change the construction world forever. If it failed, he could lose everything. The next day, he visited the lead engineer who had first rejected him. Now the man looked at Miguel with respect, not doubt. "Miguel, you have a choice. You can join this project or work elsewhere. But know this, your design could change history," he said. Miguel nodded. "I'll join, but we do it my way. No shortcuts," the lead engineer smiled. "Agreed, and I'll be right there with you." Work on the skyscraper began. Every beam, every support, every panel was measured, tested, and double-checked. Miguel's design was used exactly as he had planned, but not everyone was happy. A rival engineer, a man named Khalid, had been watching Miguel closely. Khalid was famous in Dubai for his experience, his connections, and his stubbornness. He didn't like the idea of a young Filipino engineer outshining him. During one of the early construction meetings, Khalid spoke up. "I don't trust this design. It's new, untested on this scale. If anything goes wrong, the blame will be on Miguel." Miguel looked at him calmly. "The calculations are precise, the materials are tested, and the model has been proven. There's no risk if we follow the plan," Khalid scoffed. "Words are easy, results are harder." Weeks passed. Construction was going smoothly, but Khalid didn't stop trying to sabotage the project. He spread rumors that Miguel's calculations were flawed. He pressured subcontractors to slow down, and he tried to convince the lead engineer to remove Miguel from the team, but Miguel stayed focused. He spent nights checking every calculation, supervising every step, making sure every worker followed the design precisely. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Miguel walked the construction site alone. The skeletal structure of the skyscraper stretched toward the sky, stronger than anyone imagined. A young engineer approached him. "Miguel, Khalid is trying to plant doubts among the team. Some are thinking maybe he's right." Miguel smiled. "Let him try. Doubt is a tool if you handle it correctly. We focus on what we know works. That's all that matters." Days turned into weeks. Then came the ultimate test. A simulated windstorm, created to mimic hurricane-level winds. Sensors measured every beam, every panel, every joint. The engineers held their breath. The structure held. Not just held, it swayed, absorbed, and recovered perfectly. The data was clear. Miguel's design worked beyond expectations. Khalid was furious. This can't be real," he muttered. The lead engineer turned to him, calm but firm. "It's real, and it works." Miguel was right. News of the success spread. Dubai was buzzing. Other engineers visited the site to study the design. Contractors requested Miguel's blueprints. Even governments from other countries started calling. Miguel, however, stayed humble. He made sure that every engineer working on the project understood the principles behind the design. "Innovation is useless if it's not shared," he told them. But the challenge wasn't over. Khalid, desperate to prove himself, devised a final attempt to sabotage the project. One night, he tried to convince a contractor to use cheaper, weaker materials for one section of the skyscraper. Miguel, monitoring progress late into the night, noticed immediately. He rushed to the site, heart racing. "Stop! Do not install those panels!" he shouted. The contractor froze. "But Khalid said," Miguel cut him off. "I don't care what he said. These materials are not safe. We follow the blueprint exactly. No compromises." Khalid arrived, angry and flustered. "Miguel, this is ridiculous. You're being too careful. Trust me, this will save money." Miguel stood firm. "And risk lives? Never. Not now, not ever. The blueprint is clear. We do it right or not at all." Faced with Miguel's determination, Khalid had no choice but to step back. Months passed, and the skyscraper neared completion. Every day brought more awe. The building was taller, stronger, and safer than any in Dubai. It became a symbol, not just of engineering, but of courage, persistence, and innovation. When the day came for the grand opening, the city gathered. The mayor, engineers, workers, and media stood in front of the towering structure. Miguel looked up, a mix of exhaustion and pride on his face. "This building is more than steel and glass," he said in a speech. "It's a reminder that no idea is too bold, no dream too big, and no person too small to make a difference." The lead engineer, once skeptical, clapped Miguel on the shoulder. "I was wrong, Miguel. I underestimated you. You didn't just prove a point, you changed the game." Khalid, now humbled, watched quietly. He knew Miguel had outdone everyone. The skyscraper became famous worldwide. Engineers from other countries visited Dubai to study the design. Companies started adopting Miguel's blueprint, making buildings taller, safer, and more efficient globally. And Miguel? He continued working quietly, innovating, mentoring, and sharing his knowledge. His story became known as the Filipino miracle in the construction world. People would tell stories of how one young Filipino engineer, laughed at and rejected, had changed the way the world builds. And the final twist? The very lead engineer who once said Miguel's plan wouldn't work became one of his biggest supporters. He publicly admitted that he had been completely wrong. "Miguel taught me something I never expected," he said. "Talent, courage, and persistence are stronger than experience or tradition alone." Miguel smiled quietly, looking at the Dubai skyline. The city of ambition had become the city of his dream realized. And as new skyscrapers began to rise using his blueprint, Miguel knew this was only the beginning. Even though the skyscraper was almost complete, Miguel knew the toughest tests were still ahead. The taller the building, the more unpredictable the forces. Winds, shifts in temperature, even tiny tremors could affect stability. And he had learned early on that in Dubai, the unexpected could always happen. One morning, Miguel received a call. The government inspection team would be visiting in just 3 days. If they found any flaws, the project could be delayed for months. The entire team felt the pressure. Miguel gathered his engineers. "We've done everything by the book. Every calculation, every test, every simulation. But now we must be extra careful. One small mistake and months of work could be wasted." A junior engineer raised his hand nervously. "Sir, what if they find something wrong? What if our blueprint isn't enough?" Miguel looked at him with calm confidence. "Then we learn, we fix it, but we follow the design. Nothing more, nothing less. Trust the blueprint, trust each other." 3 days later, the inspection team arrived. They walked through the building, checking every beam, every panel, every joint. Miguel followed closely, answering questions, explaining the reasoning behind every decision. At one point, an inspector stopped. "This design, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Are you sure it will hold in extreme conditions?" Miguel smiled. "Yes, we've tested everything. The prototype, the simulations, the full-scale structure, everything shows it works." The inspector nodded slowly, impressed. "Very well. We'll continue the review, but so far, excellent work." Meanwhile, Khalid, still bitter about being outshone, watched from the sidelines. He whispered to himself, "This isn't over. I will find a flaw, I have to." But Miguel didn't know it yet, and that was part of his strength. He focused on the task at hand, not the distractions around him. On the final day of inspection, a strong windstorm hit Dubai, one of the strongest in years. It wasn't scheduled, and it certainly wasn't expected. Workers were worried, some panicked, but Miguel stayed calm. "This is exactly why we designed it this way," he said. "Watch carefully." The skyscraper swayed slightly, absorbing the wind, bending but never breaking. Sensors recorded the stress on each beam, each joint, and when the storm passed, the building stood tall, stronger than ever. The inspection team was amazed. "Incredible," one of them said. "This design is revolutionary. You've not only built a skyscraper, you've changed the rules." Miguel felt a wave of relief and pride. Months of hard work, nights without sleep, endless calculations, it had all paid off. The next day, the media arrived. Reporters, cameras, drones. Everyone wanted to cover the story of the young Filipino engineer who had changed Dubai's skyline. Miguel gave interviews with humility. "This is a team effort," he said. "No one builds alone. But I hope our work shows that innovation, courage, and persistence can achieve the impossible." The lead engineer, now a friend and mentor, watched proudly. "I was wrong about you, Miguel. You didn't just prove a point, you made history." Even Khalid, finally admitting defeat, approached him quietly. "Miguel, I misjudged you, I see now. Your design works. You've done something extraordinary." Miguel nodded. "Thank you. But it's not about being better than anyone. It's about doing what's right, no matter what others say." The skyscraper became a symbol of hope, innovation, and determination. Engineers from all over the world studied it. Students learned about Miguel's methods. Companies began adopting his blueprints. And Dubai, the city of ambition, had a new landmark. A building that reached the sky and proved that bold ideas could succeed. Miguel's story traveled far beyond Dubai. In engineering circles, he became known as a pioneer. His designs inspired countless young engineers, showing them that no matter where you come from, your ideas can change the world. Years later, Miguel returned to the site. The skyscraper still stood tall, unchanged, a testament to his vision. He watched workers maintaining the building, making small improvements, following the principles he had taught them. A young engineer approached him. "Sir, I want to build something like this one day. Bigger, better. Can you teach me?" Miguel smiled. "Of course. But remember, it's not just about building tall structures. It's about building ideas, building trust, and never giving up. That's how you make a real difference." He looked up at the skyline, the sun reflecting off glass and steel, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Not just for the skyscraper, but for the journey. Every challenge, every rejection, every sleepless night. From being laughed at and rejected to being celebrated globally, Miguel had shown the world what courage, persistence, and innovation could achieve. The Filipino miracle had become real, not as a nickname, but as proof that one person with a dream could change the world. And the lesson stayed clear. When someone says your idea is impossible, when someone doubts your skill, when the world tells you no, that's the moment to push harder, to innovate, and to believe in yourself. Because sometimes, the impossible is just the beginning. Dubai's skyline would never be the same, but more importantly, the people who saw Miguel's work, students, engineers, dreamers, would carry his story forward. They would build bigger, stronger, safer, and more innovative structures. And all it took was one Filipino engineer who refused to give up. The city still shines tall and proud, but behind every beam, every panel, every corner of those buildings is the story of Miguel, the man who dared to dream, refused to quit, and proved that innovation could conquer tradition, skepticism, and even fear. And so, the world learned a lesson it would never forget. Genius doesn't always come from the expected places. Sometimes, it comes from those who are patient, persistent, and willing to turn no into an opportunity. Miguel's blueprint didn't just create a building. It created a movement, a legacy, and a story that will inspire generations to come. After the skyscraper's completion, Miguel didn't rest. While most would take a break, he knew the work had only just begun. His blueprint had proven itself in Dubai, but he wanted it to do more. He wanted it to inspire, to teach, and to change the construction world forever. He started mentoring young engineers, Filipinos, locals, and internationals. Every week, students and professionals came to his office, eager to learn from the man who had shocked the construction world. One day, a young engineer named Lena approached him. Her eyes were full of determination, and she carried her own sketches. "Sir, I want to build something like your skyscraper," she said, "but I want to make it even better, stronger, safer, and more sustainable. Can you help me?" Miguel smiled. "Of course, but remember, it's not just about building tall. It's about building smart. Every design must respect the rules of physics, the safety of people, and the limits of materials. And most importantly, it must start with a vision." He spent months teaching Lena and other young engineers, showing them how to think creatively, test rigorously, and never give up. He encouraged them to challenge traditional ideas, just like he had done. Meanwhile, news of Miguel's design spread worldwide. Countries that had faced engineering disasters in the past reached out to him. "Can your blueprint help us build safer buildings?" they asked. "Yes," Miguel replied, "but you must follow it exactly. No shortcuts. Innovation isn't just ideas, it's discipline, patience, and precision." Soon, Miguel's designs were being used in Southeast Asia, Europe, and even parts of Africa. Skyscrapers were rising taller, safer, and more efficiently than ever before. Engineers everywhere were talking about the Filipino miracle, about the man who had refused to accept no and had changed an entire industry. Back in Dubai, the media continued to follow his story. Documentaries were made, interviews were aired, students wrote essays about him. And yet Miguel stayed humble. He never sought fame. He wanted the work to speak for itself. One afternoon, as he walked past the original skyscraper he had built, a child tugged at his sleeve. "Sir, will I ever be able to build something like this?" the child asked, eyes wide with wonder. Miguel crouched down to meet him at eye level. "Yes, you can," he said gently. "But remember, it starts with believing in your ideas, even when others don't. And it continues with hard work, learning, and never giving up. That's how you make the impossible possible." The child smiled, inspired, and ran off. Miguel watched him go, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. But even as Miguel's influence grew, challenges remained. In some places, engineers resisted change. They mocked new ideas. They tried to undermine his designs. And sometimes mistakes happened. Not because the blueprint failed, but because people didn't follow it carefully. Miguel traveled personally to these sites. He taught, corrected, and inspired. Every challenge became a lesson, every mistake an opportunity. Slowly but surely, people began to trust his methods. And everywhere he went, he left a trail of safer, taller, and more efficient buildings. Years passed, and Miguel's influence became global. Awards came, but he accepted them quietly. Recognition wasn't the goal, it was the impact. And the impact was clear. Cities were safer, engineers were more innovative, and young people were dreaming bigger than ever before. Back in Dubai, a new generation of engineers now walked the construction sites, carrying Miguel's lessons with them. They built structures taller than he had ever imagined. And each time a new building reached the sky, Miguel felt the same thrill he had felt the day his first prototype passed the tests. One evening, the lead engineer, the same man who had once rejected Miguel, visited him. "I never imagined this would happen," he said softly. "You've changed the world of construction. I underestimated you, Miguel. I'm sorry." Miguel smiled warmly. "It's not about being underestimated. It's about believing in your ideas and working hard enough to make them real. That's all any of us can do," the lead engineer nodded. "And yet, you've done more than that. You've inspired the next generation. You've made the impossible possible." Miguel looked out at the Dubai skyline. Lights sparkled on buildings of all shapes and sizes. Some used his blueprint directly. Others were inspired by his methods. It was a city transformed, a city that would never forget the man who dared to dream. And Miguel's story didn't stop there. He returned to the Philippines several times, sharing his knowledge with local universities and young engineers. He helped improve construction safety, efficiency, and innovation in his home country. Every lecture, every workshop, every project he touched left a mark. Even in retirement, his influence continued. Engineers worldwide continued to build using his principles. Years had passed since Miguel first walked into that Dubai office with his blueprint in hand. The same office where he had been laughed at, dismissed, and told his ideas were impossible. Now he walked through the city he had helped transform, and it felt different. The skyline itself seemed to acknowledge his journey. Buildings taller, stronger, and safer rose everywhere, each one a silent testament to his vision and determination. And every time he saw one, he remembered the nights he had spent alone, working tirelessly, refining every detail, refusing to give up. One morning, he visited the first skyscraper he had built, the one that started it all. He climbed to the top floor, looking out over the city. Dubai stretched endlessly before him, glittering in the sun, vibrant and alive. A young engineer approached him. "Sir, can you believe all of this? All the buildings, all the progress. It's amazing. And it all started with your blueprint." Miguel smiled, a quiet pride in his eyes. "Yes, but it wasn't just my blueprint. It was every engineer who believed in it, every worker who followed it carefully, and every person who refused to give up when things got hard. That's what makes the impossible possible." The young engineer looked up at him, eyes wide. "Do you think it's possible to do even more?" Miguel paused, taking in the skyline. "Everything is possible, but it starts with believing in your idea, working hard, and never letting anyone tell you it can't be done." He thought back to that first rejection, the laughter, the doubt, the smirks, and he realized something important. Every no he had faced, every skeptic he had encountered, had only strengthened his resolve. "If no one ever doubts you," Miguel said quietly, "then you may never know how strong your ideas really are." Word of his achievements had spread globally. Governments invited him to speak. Engineering universities named programs after his designs. Construction companies sought his advice. Yet, despite all the recognition, Miguel stayed humble. One evening, as he walked through the streets of Dubai, he noticed a group of students gathered around a model of his skyscraper. They were excited, animated, full of dreams. Miguel stopped to watch. They were asking questions, debating solutions, and imagining new possibilities. He realized then that the true legacy of his work wasn't just buildings, it was inspiration. He approached them quietly. "Keep asking questions," he said. "Keep challenging what you think you know. And never stop dreaming. That's how you change the world." The students nodded, their eyes shining with hope and determination. Miguel walked away, feeling a sense of peace. He had done more than build skyscrapers. He had built ideas, confidence, and the courage to dream big. That night, as he looked out over the city, he reflected on his journey. From rejection to triumph, from skepticism to global recognition, he had proven something important. Talent, courage, and persistence can overcome doubt, fear, and tradition. And for those watching his story, the lesson was clear. Never let anyone tell you your ideas are too bold, too ambitious, or impossible, because the world will always test you. People will doubt you, doors will close in your face. But if you keep working, keep learning, and keep believing, you can turn rejection into opportunity and dreams into reality. Miguel's journey had started with a blueprint, but it ended with a movement, a revolution in thinking, a legacy of innovation, and a proof that one person's determination can change the world. And so, the Filipino engineer who was once laughed at became a symbol of hope, courage, and possibility. A man whose vision transformed not just a city, but the minds of people everywhere. Dubai's skyline would forever carry his mark. The world would forever carry his story. And every time someone looks up at a tall building, strong and safe against the winds, they might not know his name, but they will know his spirit. The spirit of Miguel, the Filipino engineer who refused to give up. Because in the end, it's not just about building skyscrapers. It's about building dreams, building ideas, and building a legacy that inspires generations to come. And that is a story worth telling. And that's the incredible story of Miguel, the Filipino engineer who turned rejection into a global legacy. His journey reminds us that with determination, courage, and belief in our ideas, nothing is truly impossible. If Miguel's story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on the ideas you've been holding back. Your next big breakthrough could be just around the corner. Here at Philippines Wealth Chronicles, we share stories of resilience, innovation, and people who defy the odds to change the world. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep believing. Because every great success starts with a single bold idea.